"Father, please, don't let them take my eyes." Daniel's voice trembled in the silence of the operating room. Thomas Carter felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. His 7-year-old son, lying on that cold stretcher, gripped his hand with the strength of someone drowning. The doctors around them used that professional, distant tone Thomas knew all too well. "Mr. Carter, we've already explained. The infection is spreading to the brain. If we don't remove the eyeballs in the next few hours, your son could die." Thomas owned the largest construction company in the country. He had enough money to buy entire hospitals. He had paid for the best specialists in Latin America. He flew with Daniel to clinics in Switzerland and the United States. Nothing worked. The bacterial infection that had started as a simple conjunctivitis had devoured the boy's sight within weeks. And now it wanted more. "Is there any other alternative?" Thomas asked for the 10th time, knowing the answer. "No, sir. I'm very sorry." Daniel began to cry. It wasn't a tantrum. It was the cry of someone who understood that they were about to lose a part of themselves forever. Thomas embraced his son and cried too, not caring about the doctors watching. What was all that money worth? What good was building skyscrapers if he couldn't save his own son's eyes? "I need some time," Thomas said, his voice hoarse. "Just one more day." The doctors exchanged concerned glances, but agreed. One day. 24 hours before Daniel would lose his eyes forever. Thomas carried his son out of the hospital. He needed air. He needed to think. But most of all, he needed a miracle money couldn't buy. That's when he made a decision that seemed absurd. He took Daniel to the city's Central Park. The same place they used to go when the boy could still see. Maybe it was nostalgia. Maybe desperation. Thomas no longer knew. They sat on a bench under an old tree. Daniel held his father's arm, his eyes swollen and red, covered by a bandage stained with discharge. Thomas watched the people passing by, children running, couples holding hands, street vendors. Normal life. Something Daniel might never have again. "I can help." The voice was soft, almost a whisper. Thomas turned and saw a black girl, far too thin for her age, wearing old patched clothes. She looked about 9. She held a worn cloth bag. "Sorry, little one, but now is not a good time," Thomas replied, thinking she was just another child asking for alms. "I know what happened to your son," she said, looking directly at Daniel. "My grandmother taught me how to heal sick eyes. I can make him see again." Thomas felt anger. Anger at someone playing with his pain like that. "Look here, girl. My son is almost dying. I don't have patience for games, understand? This is not a game, sir." The girl opened the bag and showed fresh green leaves, with a strange scent. "My grandmother healed many people before she died. She left me the knowledge. This plant only grows on a special tree here in the park. If you allow me, I can prepare the medicine every day for a week. It costs nothing to try." "A week?" Thomas almost laughed out of despair. "My son doesn't have a week. He has one day before losing his eyes." The girl didn't look away. "Then we start now." There was something in her voice. A certainty the millionaire doctors didn't have. Thomas looked at Daniel, who turned his head toward the girl, as if he could sense something different in the air. "Father, let her try." Thomas closed his eyes. He was about to do the craziest thing of his life. Entrust his son's vision, perhaps his son's life, to the hands of a street girl he had just met. But what did he have left to lose? "What's your name?" he asked. "Layla." "All right, Layla. Show me what you can do." And that's how the most improbable story Thomas Carter would ever live began. A story that would change everything he thought he knew about healing, faith, and what truly matters in life. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave in the comments what you think and from which city or country you're watching. Now let's continue, because what happened next was even more surprising. Layla took Thomas and Daniel to a gigantic tree in the center of the park. The trunk was so wide that 3 adults couldn't hug it completely. The bark had deep scars, as if the tree had lived through 1,000 battles. "My grandmother used to say this tree is over 300 years old," Layla explained as she gently touched the trunk. "It holds the cure for many illnesses. But you need to ask for it the right way." Thomas watched the girl with a mixture of skepticism and desperation. She took from her bag a small glass vial, fresh leaves, and a clean cloth. Her movements were precise, as if she had done this hundreds of times. "Sir, I need you to trust me. It's not just the medicine that heals. It's the intention. The faith." "Faith?" Thomas let out a bitter laugh. "I've prayed every day since my son got sick. I made promises. I lit candles. And you know what happened? Nothing. God didn't listen." Layla stopped what she was doing and looked at Thomas with eyes too deep for a child. "Maybe God did listen. And his answer was to put me here today." The words hit Thomas like a punch to the stomach. He had no response to that. Layla crushed the leaves inside the vial, added a few drops of a transparent liquid, and shook it all carefully. The smell was strong, somewhat bitter, but there was also something comforting about it. "Daniel, this will sting a little at first. But you have to be brave, okay?" The boy nodded. Layla moistened the cloth with the liquid and gently applied it to Daniel's swollen eyes. The boy shivered, but didn't cry out. Thomas held his son's hand, feeling completely helpless. "You need to do this 3 times a day, every day for a week," Layla instructed. "Early in the morning, at noon, and before bed. I'll come back tomorrow to do it again." "Wait," Thomas said. "Where do you live? How will I find you if we need you?" Layla lowered her eyes. "I live nearby. Under the bridge, close to the avenue." Thomas felt his heart tighten. This girl lived on the streets. Alone. "And your parents?" "My mother died when I was born. I never knew my father. My grandmother raised me, but she passed away 3 months ago." Layla's voice carried no self-pity, just facts. She was a healer. People came from far away to see her. When she died, they tried to put me in a shelter, but I ran away. I didn't want to forget what she taught me. Thomas remained silent. Here he was, a man with mansions, imported cars, fat bank accounts. And there was a girl who had nothing but an old bag and knowledge that no amount of money could buy. "Layla, do you need a place to stay?" "No, sir. I manage fine." "I'm not asking if you manage. I'm asking if you need help." The girl looked at Thomas with suspicion. She had probably already learned that well-meaning adults could be dangerous. "Why do you care?" "Because you're trying to save my son when no one else could. It's the least I can do." Layla thought for a moment. "Okay. But only if I can keep coming here to care for Daniel. That's important." Agreed. That night, Thomas took Daniel home, carrying the vial Layla had prepared. His wife Helena was in the living room, her eyes red from crying so much. "Thomas, the hospital called 3 times. They want to know if we're going to do the surgery tomorrow." "No," Thomas said firmly. "We're not doing it." "What do you mean we're not doing it?" "Our son will die. I found someone who can help." "Who? Another quack doctor? Another crazy healer who will take our money?" "A 9-year-old street girl." Helena looked at her husband as if he had completely lost his mind. "You've lost it?" "Maybe. But she was the only person who gave me hope today. And I need hope, Helena. I need to believe there's a chance." Helena wanted to scream, to shake her husband and bring him back to reason. But when she looked into Thomas's eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in weeks, a spark. A tiny flicker of hope. "1 week," she said, her voice breaking. "You have 1 week. If it doesn't work, we do the surgery." 1 week, Thomas agreed. That night, Daniel slept with a damp cloth over his eyes. Thomas sat by his son's bed, watching his chest rise and fall. For the first time in a long time, he prayed sincerely. Not asking for impossible miracles. Just thanking God for bringing Layla into their lives. He didn't know it yet, but this would be the first of many nights that would completely change his life. Because sometimes God doesn't send angels with wings. Sometimes he sends a street girl with a cloth bag and a heart bigger than any fortune. The first 3 days were pure agony. Daniel screamed in pain when Layla applied the medicine. His eyes became even redder, swollen as if they were about to burst. Thomas and Helena took turns holding their son, who begged for the treatment to stop. "It's getting worse." Helena shouted on the 3rd day, holding Daniel, who cried convulsively. "Thomas, enough. Let's go to the hospital now." Layla remained calm, even as Helena practically tried to kick her out of the house. "Ma'am, I know it seems worse. But the poison needs to leave before the cure can enter. That's how it works." My grandmother taught me that pain is part of the process. Your grandmother was wrong. You're just a child playing doctor with my son's life. Thomas stepped between the two. Helena, please. 4 days left. 4 days? Our son could be permanently blind in 4 days. He's already blind. Thomas shouted, and silence fell over the room. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell. But he's already blind, Helena. What do we have to lose? Helena left the room crying. Thomas looked at Layla, who continued preparing the next treatment with steady hands. Are you sure about what you're doing? I am, sir. Trust me. On the 4th day, something changed. Daniel woke up and said that the pain had lessened. Not completely, but it was bearable. Layla smiled for the first time since starting the treatment. His body is accepting it, she explained. Now comes the good part. She changed the formula. She added other leaves, lighter in color, with a sweet scent. The liquid became less thick, smoother. When she applied it to Daniel's eyes, the boy didn't scream. He just sighed. It's warm, Daniel murmured. But it doesn't hurt. Thomas felt tears roll down his face. For the first time in days, there was real progress. On the 5th day, Daniel said he could see lights. Not shapes, not colors. Just brightness where there had been complete darkness. The doctors Thomas had consulted said this was impossible. That the infection had destroyed the optic nerves irreversibly. But there was his son, sitting on the bed, turning his face toward the window. Father, is sunlight coming in? Thomas looked at the window where the morning light flooded the room. Yes, son. There's sunlight. Helena entered the room at that moment and saw the scene. She saw her husband hugging their son. She saw Layla in the corner, putting away her vials and leaves in silence, asking for no recognition or applause. And something inside her broke. All the distrust, all the fear, all the pride. She knelt in front of Layla and hugged her tightly. Forgive me, Helena whispered. Forgive me for not believing in you. Layla returned the hug, and for the first time seemed like a real child. Vulnerable. Needy. Human. It's okay, ma'am. You were scared. I understand. On the 6th day, Daniel began to see shadows. He could tell when someone entered the room. He pointed to where objects were, even if not exactly correct. The impossible was happening before everyone's eyes. Thomas called the doctors and asked them to examine Daniel. They came skeptical, prepared to deliver bad news. But when they tested his eye reflexes, when they asked Daniel to follow the light of a flashlight, they fell silent. This is impossible, Dr. Ramirez said, looking at the old exams and comparing them to what he saw now. There is no scientific explanation for this recovery. The tissues were necrotic. It was irreversible. Apparently not, Thomas replied, looking at Layla, who watched everything from the corner of the room. How did you do this? The doctor asked Layla. My grandmother taught me. It's ancient knowledge. Ancient how long? From her grandmother, from her grandmother's grandmother. I don't know when it began. I just know it works. Dr. Ramirez wanted to ask questions, study the leaves, understand the mechanism. But Layla was already leaving the room, her work done. On the 7th day, Daniel opened his eyes on his own for the first time in weeks. And he could see. Not perfectly. Everything was blurry, as if underwater. But he could see. He saw his father's face. He saw his mother crying with joy. He saw Layla smiling in the corner of the room. I knew it, Layla said simply. I knew it would work. Daniel got out of bed, unsteady, and walked to Layla. He hugged the girl tightly. You saved me. It wasn't me, Layla replied. It was the plant. It was your strength. It was God working through all of this. Thomas approached the two children. He had a decision to make. A decision that would change everything. Layla, you're not going back under that bridge. The girl looked at him, confused. Where will I stay then? Here. With us. If you want, of course. Layla was silent for a long moment. Tears filled her eyes, which she tried to hide. Why? I already did what I needed to do. Because you are part of this family now. Because my son has a sister. Because you deserve to have a home. And that's how Layla found a family. Not by blood, but by something far stronger. By kindness that heals more than any medicine ever could. 3 months later, life finally seemed to be at peace. Daniel had returned to school, wearing special glasses but seeing almost perfectly. Layla was enrolled in the same school, wearing a new uniform, with notebooks and pencils she looked at as if they were treasures. Helena brushed her hair every morning, braiding it with a mother's care. But the peace didn't last long. On a rainy December afternoon, the doorbell rang. Thomas opened the door and found a fat, sweaty man, with wrinkled clothes and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thomas Carter? My name is Roberto Medina. I'm Layla's uncle." Thomas felt his stomach turn. Uncle? Layla never mentioned any uncle. Well, we hadn't seen each other in years. But when I found out my niece was here, I came to get her. Family is family, right? Thomas called Layla. When the girl saw Roberto, all the color drained from her face. "I'm not going with you," she said, her voice shaking. "Come on, Layla, don't be ungrateful. I'm your only living relative. You belong with me. You never cared about me. When my grandmother died, you didn't even show up at the funeral." Roberto shrugged. "I was busy. But now I'm here. And by law, I'm your legal guardian." Thomas stepped between Roberto and Layla. "She stays here. We're filing for legal custody." "Oh yeah?" Roberto smiled maliciously. "Well, I already filed mine. And I have priority for being a blood relative. The judge will decide next week. Until then, Layla comes with me." "No." Layla screamed, clinging to Thomas. "He doesn't care about me. He just wants money." "Money?" Roberto pretended to be indignant. "What an accusation. I just want to take care of my niece." But Thomas saw the truth in that man's eyes. He had read the news. He knew Daniel's story had gone viral on the internet. He knew many people wanted to meet the miracle girl. Roberto didn't want Layla. He wanted to exploit her. "Get out of my house," Thomas said, his voice low and dangerous. "I'll leave. But I'll be back with the police and a court order. Get ready, Mr. Carter. Your little happy family game is over." Roberto left, slamming the door. Layla collapsed onto the floor, crying. Helena ran to hug her, but the girl was inconsolable. "I don't want to go with him. He's evil. He used to hit my grandmother when he asked her for money." Thomas grabbed his phone and called his lawyer. He needed help. He needed a legal miracle as great as the medical miracle Layla had performed. The following days were a nightmare. Roberto returned with a temporary court order. A social worker showed up to evaluate the situation. Layla was questioned, examined, treated like an object in dispute rather than a child. At the hearing, the judge was an old man with thick glasses who looked tired of life. Roberto presented documents proving the family relationship. He spoke eloquently about family, tradition, blood. He lied, saying he had searched for Layla for months. Thomas presented photos of Layla smiling at home. School reports showing her progress. Letters from teachers praising her adaptation. Daniel even wrote an essay saying Layla was his real sister. But the judge didn't seem impressed. "Mr. Carter, I understand your goodwill. But the law is clear. Blood relatives have priority. Unless there is concrete evidence of abuse or neglect. I have proof." A voice shouted from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. An elderly woman, leaning on a cane, walked slowly down the aisle. Behind her were 3 other people. Faces marked by hard lives, but with honest eyes. "Who are you, ma'am?" the judge asked. "My name is Dona Francisca. I was Layla's grandmother's neighbor. And these people here also knew the family." Dona Francisca approached the judge and handed him an envelope. "This is a letter Layla's grandmother wrote before she died. She knew Roberto would show up one day. And she wrote everything down. The threats, the assaults, the thefts. Everything." The judge opened the envelope and read in silence. His face changed. It turned red. He looked at Roberto with disgust. "Mr. Medina, the woman who recently passed away accuses you of domestic violence, extortion, and misappropriation. There is even a police report on file. Would you like to explain yourself?" Roberto began to stammer, sweating even more. Those are lies from a crazy old woman." "Lies?" Dona Francisca showed old photographs. Here is your sister with a bruised face after you hit her for not lending you money. Here is the hospital record. The judge slammed the gavel. Custody denied to Mr. Medina. And I will forward this case to the public prosecutor's office for investigation. Mr. Carter, the adoption paperwork will be processed with priority. Next case. Layla jumped into Thomas's arms, crying. But this time they were tears of joy. Roberto left the courtroom escorted by security, shouting about injustices no one wanted to hear. Outside the courthouse, Thomas hugged Dona Francisca. How can I thank you? No need to thank me, young man. That girl deserves to be happy. And you were the answer to her grandmother's prayers. She always said that someone good would take care of Layla when she was gone. You are that someone. 10 years passed like pages of a book that no one wants to finish reading. Daniel was at university, studying photography. His photos had something special, his professors said. A unique sensitivity to capture light and shadow. As if he understood the value of every sunbeam in a way others could not. He never forgot to say that he had learned this during the days he lived in darkness. Layla was 17 now. She had been accepted into medical school with a full scholarship. The girl who once lived under a bridge was now studying in the same classrooms as the children of the elite. But she never forgot where she came from. Every Saturday, Layla returned to Central Park. She carried a cloth bag, similar to the one she had carried as a child. Inside were medicinal herbs, homemade ointments, natural remedies. And she helped anyone in need, free of charge. People lined up to speak with her. Not just the poor. Executives in suits, ladies from upscale neighborhoods, bus drivers, street vendors. All seeking what traditional medicine could not provide: time, attention, care. Sometimes Thomas went with her. He watched from a distance, his heart swelling with pride. The girl he had almost not allowed near his son was now helping hundreds of people. One of those Saturdays, a woman approached the line, carrying a child of about 5 years old in her arms. The girl was pale, her lips purple, struggling to breathe. "Please," the woman begged. "My daughter is very sick. The doctors say it's her heart. But I don't have money for surgery. They said you could help." Layla examined the child carefully. She listened to her heart, looked into her eyes, touched her cold skin. "I can't heal a heart like this," Layla said, and the woman began to cry. "But I know someone who can. Wait here." Layla ran to Thomas. "Father, I need your help. There's a child here who needs urgent heart surgery. The family can't afford it." Thomas didn't hesitate. "Call Dr. Ramirez. Tell him it's urgent. I'll pay for everything." And so it happened. The girl underwent surgery a week later. The operation was a success. And when the mother tried to thank Thomas, he simply said, "Don't thank me. Thank my daughter. She is the one who sees what truly matters." That night, the family gathered for dinner. Helena had made Layla's favorite meal, rice with beans and roasted chicken, the same simple food the girl had eaten with her grandmother. Layla never wanted to forget her roots. "Father, Mother, Daniel," Layla said after they finished eating. "I have something to tell you." The three looked at her, curious. "I've decided to start a project. I want to open a clinic that combines traditional and modern medicine. A place where people like that mother today can be treated without having to choose between food and medicine." Thomas smiled. "And what do you need?" "You. Support. Belief that this is possible." Helena held Layla's hand. "Daughter, we've always believed in you. Since the day you appeared under that tree." "Actually," Daniel said, adjusting his glasses, "I've been thinking about something similar. I want to document stories of healing. Show that medicine isn't just about pills and surgeries. It's about people. Can I photograph all this? Tell these stories?" Layla smiled, her eyes shining. "That would be perfect." Thomas looked at his family around the table. A family that wouldn't exist if he hadn't given that strange girl in the park a chance. A family united not by blood, but by something far more powerful. "Then let's make it happen," Thomas said. "Together." 5 years later, the Esperanza Clinic served more than 200 people a day. Volunteer doctors worked alongside traditional healers. Layla, now graduated, coordinated everything with the same calm she had at 9 years old when she prepared the first remedy for Daniel. The clinic made national news. Universities wanted to study the model. Other countries sent delegations to learn. But for Layla, the most important thing was the children running through the clinic courtyard, healthy, playing, living. One of those days, an 8-year-old girl approached her. She had braided hair, dark skin, and curious eyes. She carried a cloth bag. "Dr. Layla, my grandmother taught me to make medicine with herbs. Can I show you?" Layla knelt in front of the girl, and for a moment saw herself reflected in those eyes. "What's your name?" "Marina." "Marina, do you know what a miracle is?" The girl shook her head. "A miracle is when God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And I think you can be a miracle for someone. Show me what your grandmother taught you." And so the cycle continued. Kindness generating kindness. Healing generating more healing. Love multiplying love. Because Thomas Carter learned something that day in the park years ago. He learned that the greatest treasures aren't in vaults or banks. They are in the hands of a girl who has nothing, yet gives everything. They are in the courage to believe when everything seems lost. They are in the choice to love unconditionally. And that is the only wealth that truly matters. If this story touched your heart, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments what you thought and where you're watching from. Your interaction helps this message reach more people who need to believe that miracles still happen. Until the next story.